Hi there! Today, I am going to share a beautiful story with you, and we'll use it for shadowing practice. Shadowing means repeating after me while I speak slowly and clearly. This helps you train your ears, your mouth, and your confidence when speaking English. I'll read the story in a calm voice, with short pauses so you can listen carefully and repeat each line after me. At the end of this lesson, your pronunciation will improve in ways you won't believe if you practice this every day. You will sound more natural, you will speak with more confidence, and you'll start thinking in English without fear. So, take a deep breath, relax, and get ready to repeat after me. Let's begin our story. Don't waste your time.
My name is Elena, and when I was younger, I thought time would wait for me. I believed I had all the time in the world to do whatever I wanted. Every day after school, I threw my backpack on the floor and checked my phone. I spent hours watching videos, chatting with friends, and laughing at nothing important. My mother used to say, "Elena, do your homework first," but I always said later. And later became tomorrow, and tomorrow became maybe next week. My grandmother, who lived with us, often looked at me from her chair near the window. She didn't talk much, but when she did, her words stayed in my head for days. One afternoon, she said, "Elena, time is like water. You can't hold it forever." I smiled and said, "Grandma, don't worry. I have plenty of time." She shook her head slowly. "That's what I used to think too," she whispered. I didn't understand what she meant. I thought she was just being dramatic. That evening, I went to my room, put on music, and forgot her words completely. But something about her tone felt different, like she knew something I didn't. Days passed. I kept living the same way, wasting time and doing nothing serious. One morning, I woke up and heard my mother crying quietly in the kitchen. I walked in and saw my grandmother sitting down, her hands shaking as she held a cup. "Is Grandma okay?" I asked. My mother said softly, "She's not feeling well. The doctor's coming." I froze. For the first time, I looked at my grandmother and really saw her. Her hands were thin, her face tired, but her eyes still calm and kind. And suddenly, her words came back to me. Time is like water. You can't hold it forever. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing her voice again and again inside my head. Question for you. Have you ever realized too late that you were wasting something important in your life? The doctor came that morning. He said my grandmother needed rest and daily medicine. After he left, my mother looked at me and said, "Elena, I need your help." I didn't like the idea. I wanted to go out with my friends instead, but I nodded. "Okay," I said quietly, trying not to sound disappointed. That afternoon, I helped Grandma take her pills and bring her tea to the table. She smiled weakly and said, "You're growing up, Elena. Thank you for helping me today." I shrugged. "It's nothing," I said. "I'm just doing what Mom asked." She looked at me kindly. "Still, I'm proud of you. Her voice was soft but strong. Each day after school, I spent a little more time in Grandma's room. Sometimes she talked. Sometimes she just listened to the radio or looked through old photos. One afternoon I asked her, "Grandma, were you always this calm when you were young?" She laughed quietly. "No, my dear, I was wild, like you." I smiled. "Really? What did you do when you were my age?" She said, "I dreamed of studying, but we had no money. I had to work instead." I looked at her hands, thin and tired, and felt a strange pain in my chest. She continued, "I wanted to be a teacher, but time passed and life chose for me." Her words stayed in the air, heavy but honest. I didn't know what to say. I asked softly, "Do you regret it?" She looked out the window and said, "Only the time I lost." That night, I lay in bed thinking about her words. They didn't leave my mind. At school the next day, my friend Mia said, "Come on, Elena, let's skip homework." I almost said yes, but then I heard my grandmother's voice again in my head. "Time is like water. You can't hold it forever." For the first time, I said, "No, I can't. I have things to do today." Mia laughed. "Since when are you so serious?" I smiled. "Since yesterday," I said. "That evening, I went to check on Grandma, but she wasn't sitting in her chair anymore." Question for you. Have you ever heard advice that didn't make sense at first, but later changed your life? When I entered Grandma's room that evening, her chair was empty for the first time. My heart jumped. I called, "Grandma?" But only silence answered. Then I heard my mother's voice. "She's resting in bed, Elena. The doctor said she needs more time to recover." I nodded and walked quietly to her room. She smiled when she saw me. "Don't worry," she said softly. "I'm not going anywhere yet." I sat beside her bed, holding her hand. "Do you need anything, Grandma?" She whispered, "Just company." So I stayed and listened while she told me old stories. She spoke about her first job, her friends, and the books she used to love. Her eyes shined when she said, "I always wanted to study, maybe be a teacher one day." I asked, "Why didn't you?" She smiled sadly. "Time. It went faster than I expected." After she fell asleep, I looked around her room. It was full of quiet memories, old pictures, a broken watch, a rosary, and a small box of papers on the table. I opened the box carefully and found an old notebook with my grandmother's name on it. The pages were yellow, the handwriting small and neat. I started reading slowly. It was full of dreams, to study, to travel, to open a small school someday. On one page, she wrote, "Every minute I waste is one I can't get back." I turned to the last page and read her final words. "Don't waste your time." Tears filled my eyes. I closed the notebook and held it close to my chest. At that moment, I understood what she had been trying to tell me all along. It wasn't just advice, it was her story, a story she didn't want me to repeat. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about her dreams and my own life. All the hours I had lost suddenly felt heavy, like stones in my heart. In the morning, I made a decision. I would change. I wouldn't waste another day. When I came home from school, Grandma looked at me and said, "You seem different today." I smiled. "Maybe I finally understand you, Grandma." She looked at me quietly and said, "Then promise me one thing, Elena. Don't stop learning." Question for you. If you found a notebook full of someone's dreams, what would you learn from it? The next days felt slower, quieter. Grandma spoke less and her hands trembled more often. I brought her tea, medicine, and the notebook I had found in her box. When she saw it, she smiled softly. "You found my little secret, didn't you?" I nodded. "Yes, Grandma. It's beautiful. Why didn't you tell me before?" She looked at the ceiling and said, "Because some dreams are too painful to remember." I held her hand and whispered, "You could still write more. You can still dream." She shook her head gently. "No, Elena, it's your turn now." Her words broke something inside me. "My turn?" I asked, trying not to cry. She smiled faintly. "Yes, you have time, and I want you to use it well." I took a deep breath and said, "I will. I promise I won't waste it." She nodded slowly. "That's all I wanted to hear." Her eyes looked tired but peaceful, like she had been waiting for that moment. That night, I stayed beside her bed, reading the notebook out loud, page by page. She listened quietly, sometimes smiling, sometimes closing her eyes like she was dreaming again. When I reached the last line, "Don't waste your time," her fingers touched mine softly. She whispered, "You see, my dear, time is the only thing we can't buy again." Tears fell down my face. "I know now, Grandma. I finally understand." She looked at me one last time and said, "Then live enough for both of us." Her voice was weak, almost a whisper, but it was strong enough to stay forever. I sat beside her, holding her hand, afraid to let go. The room was quiet, only the sound of the clock ticking on the wall. Tick, tick. Every second felt heavier than the one before. Then her hand stopped moving. I whispered her name, but the clock kept ticking. Question for you. If you could say one last thing to someone you love, what would it be? Years have passed since that quiet night when I said goodbye to my grandmother. I still keep her notebook in a small drawer beside my bed. Sometimes I open it and read her words when I feel tired or lost. Each line reminds me of her voice. Soft, patient, full of quiet strength. I finished school, went to college, and became a teacher just like she dreamed. Every time I stand in front of my students, I remember her words again. I tell them, "Time is like water. Don't waste it. Use it for something good." They smile and nod, maybe not understanding yet, just like I once didn't. After class, I look at the sunset through the window and whisper, "We did it, Grandma." The clock keeps ticking, but it doesn't scare me anymore because now I know that every second has a purpose when you live it with meaning. final message. Don't waste your time waiting for the perfect moment. Create it before it passes. What would you do differently if you realized that time never waits for anyone?